Now, if I said floating bus stop to you, it's a fair bet that you might not know what one is. If not, this is what one looks like. A traffic island where bus passengers can get off before crossing a cycle lane to get to the pavement. The aim is to keep cyclists safe by rediverting them. But today, the National Federation of the Blind, along with 270 other organisations, have raised concerns about pedestrian safety. Alice Bandercravi has the story.
Dodging cyclists, a number of near misses at one bus bypass in the space of one day. Eventually, though, somebody gets knocked over. The so-called floating bus stops are designed with cycle lanes going around them, keeping cyclists out of the main road. It also means bus passengers have to cross the cycle lane to get to the bus, and few of the cyclists stop at the pedestrian crossing.
When you get off a bus, you're getting off and then half the time you don't realise that there's a cycle lane there, and there's not always the zebra crossing bit either.
For visually impaired people and those with disabilities, it's even more hazardous. Right, so there's a lamppost right in front of me, and the problem for visually impaired people is that when they get off the bus, they don't know whereabouts on this floating bus stop they're going to be dropped off, and then there's no clear way to know how to navigate themselves to this particular crossing, which is where they are supposed to cross, and avoid cyclists. It's led to some accusing TfL of prioritising the safety of cyclists over vulnerable pedestrians.
Visually impaired people in particular are less likely to want to travel and use these bus stop bypasses. They can't use the local facilities in the independent way they would like to, in the way they used to, because they can't use the buses. This is really an equalities issue, and I say that disabled people continue to be at the bottom of the pile as far as the transport system is concerned.
TfL says they've conducted a review into safety at bus stop bypasses and that the risk of a collision is very low.
I recognise that people don't always feel safe in these locations. While the review shows there is a low risk of any collisions at the bus stop bypasses across the whole city, people don't always feel safe, which is why it's so important that we work with the groups to improve the designs and work with cyclists to educate and increase enforcement of dangerous behaviour.
I would prefer to see the cycle lane somewhere else, either further back, so that you're not having to cross over, certainly not on a road as well.
On a busy road like this. Yeah.
Campaigners this afternoon have taken their demands for an end to bus bypasses to number 10. Alice Bandercravi, BBC London.
So what's the view of the cyclist in all of this? Alison Earle joins us live from a floating bus stop in Walthamstow. Alison.
Yes, Al, this is a borough that's seen lots of investment when it comes to getting people cycling. The so-called mini Holland schemes. Now, part of that involves creating segregated cycle lanes, as you can see right here, but also floating bus stops like the ones on this road. But as we've been hearing, there have been some real concerns. Let's get the perspective now of Simon Monk, who's from the London Cycling Campaign. Now, Simon, there are videos doing the rounds of collisions involving pedestrians and cyclists at floating bus stops, as well as lots of near misses. What do you make of that, and do you agree that there are some real risks?
There are risks, but at the end of the day you have to keep those risks in your mind proportionally. So TfL has looked at that and today released evidence saying that they can only really see about 4 collisions in 3 years across 164 bus stops that have had similar treatments to this one. So we are talking about risk, but we're talking about what they call extremely low risk. And that simply is the case. The junction that we're standing at just behind you was a really seriously dangerous junction until the mini Holland schemes came along and until these got fixed. We get rid of the cycle track here, we get rid of the floating bus stop. Not only are we reintroducing road danger for people who cycle here and people who walk here, pedestrians, but we're also making sure that most people don't cycle here. So while people like me, middle-aged men in Lycra, might cycle here, you know, women stop cycling here because of the lack of treatment around bus stops. kids stop cycling, etc.
There are zebra crossings on them. How do we get people to use them, and what about that behaviour of the cyclists?
Absolutely, it's a huge issue. Now TfL's looked at that. What there should be there is a raised table, like a bump as well, a speed bump as well as a zebra crossing. They're now saying that they're going to try and retrofit all of their bus stops to make sure that they're as good as they can be to try and reinforce cyclist behaviour. Obviously cyclists shouldn't be ploughing through there, some do. People are idiots sometimes, unfortunately, no matter what mode they are.
Simon Monk from the London Cycling Campaign, thank you. Well, the cycling community, as you can hear, think these are vital and should stay for everyone's safety, but campaigners insist they will continue to make their voices heard about what they feel are the risks.